I mean, there's a lot more than that. If you trust the government, you are messed up. You are not one of the audience here. In fact, you're just you couldn't even like make it through the opening, you know. Welcome to the Made You Think show. I'm your host, Darrell Becker, licensed acupuncturist, who just realized that he was indoctrinated into believing a bunch of unsubstantiated nonsense masquerading as widely publicized scientific facts. Yeah, you're here because you have some curiosity. You want to discover new information. You have humility. You realize you have been wrong about stuff that you strongly believe in, and now you want to find out what might actually be more accurate. You want a more accurate map of reality. You have courage to disagree with your family and your friends about beliefs and ideas. Your mind is flexible, and you can consider contradictory ideas without experiencing cognitive dissonance. And you're smart enough to know what cognitive dissonance means without me having to explain it to you. But I will. I'll read those things later on. Listeners get to hear the memes being described. That's cool. And, of course, people who are watching the vlog, you'll actually see the show on all the censorship-resistant platforms, and you'll get to see the memes and feel the impact. Let's begin. So, to start off, I'm going to just go right into it. I started here with this here Facebook profile. This profile here is just, it's pretty large. I mean, like, at this point now, 4.9 thousand followers, and, you know, I'm getting closer to the 4,500 friends, that kind of thing. It's, you know, never made me any money, technically speaking, but, you know, this can, you know, because down the line, that's why I got MadeYouThink.com. You know, so-called digital creator. I'm a healthcare provider. I provide healthcare consulting, and of course, I am a licensed acupuncturist here in the Big Island of Hawaii. But I get to consult for people's health across the world at this point, you know, because we're all connected. And, you know, that's one thing that I get to do at this point, for money and for what I love to do. Though making content like this is not the smoothest thing yet for me. The smoothest thing is being a guest on someone else's show. That's my favorite thing. Making my own show, I'll gain this muscle strength eventually. But here's the deal. I make a bunch of, you know, I can easily go back into my archives of like just straight up onto my phone and then upload, like, I would say really fire quality memes and then just, you know, like post them one after another. And I get to meet the people on this little island, this island of a population of 200,000. I'm on the more populated side, near the Hilo side. I occasionally run into people, meet my friends who say, Darrell, I love what you post. I love what you post on Instagram. Love what you post on Facebook. Yeah, my stuff gets mirrored from Facebook to Instagram. And, you know, those are heavily censored platforms. That means, like, you know, I am shadow banned over there. That means you don't get to really see, like, everything unless you're actually literally following my page, you know. Most people don't get to see that stuff. But, yeah, that's just some of it. Here's the deal, you know, like, starting with the first meme. You know, just to start with that one. You know, got this one here showing the glowing, just formerly alive version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, it's like many of the truths we cling to depend on our source of funding. Oh, I forgot to remember to move the microphone. Many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our source of funding. So, the way that this meme helps make your life more wonderful is to understand that if you cling to truths, that's your problem right there. If you have the ability just to say, yeah, you've been fooled before and you're going to be fooled again, you know, that's good. And, you know, that's kind of like the thing that I always try to remember myself, how many ways that I possibly could be wrong about a conclusion, a belief, a thing. You know, that's right there. That's like essence of it, you know? And so clinging to a truth, that's the problem. You know, it's like you just the same way, you know, as in the Star Wars saga, you cling to it. And, you know, if you don't understand, follow the money, you know, look into Ian Carroll and who he is. He follows the money pretty well. Go ahead. Grand Theft World good buddies over there, Richard Grove and folks, they are following the money. Also, James Corbett, CorbettReport.com. He definitely follows the money. That's old school. So, yeah, like this is important. This next one here, this meme is that I don't know why I have health problems starter pack, and it shows all the nasty Wesson canola oil, great value, smart balance, margarine, nasty stuff. I can't believe it's not butter kind of thing. Margarine in general, the stuff was invented to be truck lube. Look it up. It's not healthy, but that's for if you think you're cooking and adding stuff to this in your home. The reality is restaurant food, all that kind of stuff, it's just coming through. It's coming through, and that's a problem. It's your stuff is being cooked in it. Your products that are already pre-made and pre-cooked, your sauces, your everything that you're adding to stuff. If you're not reading ingredients, you're going to have a bad time down the line. Just saying. And I'll go to my next meme there. It's the important meme I'll just say. When somebody asks me why I don't trust the government, it shows Homer Simpson, and he's holding up the list. That list: MK Ultra, Operation Northwoods, Operation Paperclip, Operation Fast and Furious, Operation Mockingbird, Tuskegee experiments, Waco, Ruby Ridge, JFK, NSA spying, Building 7, Gulf of Tonkin, Chicago black sites, Flint water crisis, Iran-Contra, Gary Webb, NDAA, Patriot Act, Bilderberg Group, Bohemian Grove, Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo Bay. I mean, there's a lot more than that. If you trust the government, you are messed up. You are not one of the audience here. In fact, you couldn't even make it through the opening. You do not possess the qualities necessary to enjoy the show. The thing is, though, you are watching and listening. You are friends with people who are like this, who trust the government, or you tolerate them, or in your life and somehow, or you're married to them, or they're in your family, they're your mom and dad, or they are your important friend that you're just not giving up on because you connect with them on deep levels. See, this one here. Human beings are born with different capacities. If they are free, they are not equal. And if they are equal, they are not free. That's Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. He's the famous author of the Gulag Archipelago. This one has been pointed to by notables such as Dr. Jordan Peterson, but many others. I think that it's important. You don't necessarily have to read Solzhenitsyn. I think all you need to do is sort of get the gist of it. That guy survived concentration camps of sorts, I believe the Soviet kind, and he made it out. And so, yeah, I think that the biggest supporters of collectivist authoritarianism, first of all, those people right now, the big supporters of that here in the United States, over there possibly in Europe, but especially in the United States, are living under the more open and more free market situation going on here. This is why you have a poor state like West Virginia, where people, thanks to less regulations than over there in many countries in Europe, less regulations and less taxes than many places in Europe, and certainly more freedom than many places in the third world, people there make more money or have the potential to make more money, even though, a comparative state like, say, with lots of money like New York and New York, California, there's a lot of money over there in comparison. People, there's heavy duty jobs compared to West Virginia. I've got friends in West Virginia, and I really look forward to returning to visit there. I've been there since I was 20 years old. And I'm grateful that it exists. I just want people to understand, Solzhenitsyn is there as a way to open your mind and free your mind from things. And I do love this advert, pharmaceutical companies 1 minute after psychedelics are legalized. And here you got this box of DMT, toad-free formula. Leave your body instantly. Communicate with entities. Meet God. 24 soft gels. Yeah, someday. Um, I I've tried to describe this to people who are spiritual. Some spiritual folks over here on the Big Island of Hawaii. I tried to describe folks who have not experienced the psychedelic experience to say, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. There are things that will force you into a spiritual experience. Things like the ayahuasca experience, things like the bufo, I believe that's the toad resin experience, or other powerful things. Certainly, of course, psilocybin mushrooms. Certainly, of course, the other components known as, LSD, uh, mescaline, things like the peyote ritual, that at a certain point in those experiences, unless you're microdosing, you get to actually have a profound experience that will open your mind to new things. I think it's important. Smile at the meme for sure, but keep in mind, and you don't have to go there, as I certainly have realized recently by just attempting to spend more time with this YouTube channel, Breathe with Sandy, and other methods of breath work. That is a non-drug method for altering your mind. I also have other places that I go doing the men's work of the known method called the Mankind Project. You can go to mkpusa.com and look that one up. But there's experiences of learning about yourself. That's a non-drug experience to open your mind. And for sure, I have folks who go to the non-denominational church locally to me and all get together and pray and sing. And that is a profound experience right there. That's a profound experience that people get to open their mind. I would like people to sort of open their mind. That's the purpose of the Made You Think show, just to think more deeply. And yeah, moving to the next one here is this one more touches on the medical freedom aspect. And I'm going to touch on medical freedom throughout the history of this show, okay? See, there were 4 main vaccines introduced as being safe and effective at preventing COVID. 2 of those 4 vaccines have now been removed from the market for safety issues, including death. So who's crazy? People trusting the last 2 remaining vaccines or anti-vaxxers? If you trust the authorities on this, you're going to have a hard time. That's the purpose of this. You're going to have a very, very bad time. We're going to touch on a whole things about health at some point in these shows, but one at a time. I hope you like these memes. I hope you share these memes. I will make them accessible for each and every show. And speaking of that, fruit. This fruit is always in season. And it's definitely a tree showing the fruits of gentleness and kindness and love and patience, faithfulness, self-control, generosity, and peace. It's important just to know that those are accessible. That's something I would put over there in the inspiring category of memes. Here's one that's medical. So, this one's about people who don't understand history through the lens of actual stats of, in this case, United States homicide rate. That's the numbers, that's over there. That would be on my left-hand side, on the up-down axis. I guess that's called the x-axis. And then the left-right axis, that's the starting in 1886. Where does it go? 1885, going all the way to 2012. And it shows that, in the Wild West, when everyone was armed, we have the lowest rates of actual homicides. What do you know? When almost everyone was armed, because you pretty much had to be, you have the least amount of homicide. And when you have, as soon as union-led gun control laws enacted, looks like that's pointing to around, I don't know, I'm taking a guess, maybe 1904 or something like that, on this chart. Then you start to have a massive rise of, now you of course, you have, homicide goes up, massively goes up. And then you have alcohol prohibition, and it goes up yet again. And then you have prohibition, the end of alcohol prohibition, and it goes way down. And then You have post-JFK assassination, gun control laws enacted again. That's right there in 1963. And then you have, of course, the rise of increased homicide going up again. And then you have the war on drugs, and the homicide rates continue to climb. And then right there at the, 1993, 4, 5, you have the states move to shall issue concealed carry permits. Now you have, who knows who's carrying a gun? There's concealed carry permits are everywhere. And some states, I remember like Vermont, there is no law. Anyone can buy and carry a gun. You don't need a law for that. There's, thank God, there's like a very not infringed over there at a certain period of time while I was living there. And that's a precipitous drop in homicide. And it keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. And now, of course, you have like the end of the chart, 2012, and people think that guns are a problem because that's perception management. That's people watching the wrong frame of news. Yeah, it's showing a vaccine filled with kind of red pinkish kind of liquid. The plan was to make people so desperate for a return to normal that they would go and get injected with something they know absolutely nothing about. See, that's what happened in 2020. I remember people doing that. And it really made a dividing line between people who were smart and people who were absolutely just not interested in being smart. Those are the two different things. I like to say something about smart right now. I've gotten a lot of compliments over my lifetime of people saying that I'm smart because of the way I put words together, because of how they think of smart, that this kind of articulation sounds smart. Here's the deal. I have realized over time that things like my bank account and my romantic history and my ability to hold onto assets or to understand how to improve a homestead or how to negotiate conflict within myself and negotiate conflict between me and others. I failed at all of those things a lot. So now I realize that for me, the beginning of being intelligent is to acknowledge that I'm actually very stupid in many ways. Not to as a derogatory thing, not to say like that I think I'm stupid across the board and I will never get smart. I don't think it's a permanent condition, just like health isn't a permanent condition. I think that I have a long way to go to being smart. My bank account shows that. I have almost a year of less conflict with someone that I really love. And that shows me that I'm getting smarter. I have almost a year of, wow, I'm doing better and I got out of debt. Wow, that's improvement, And I realize, oh, I chose the wrong car to buy. That's okay. I will, at some point, I will get another one and I'll sell this piece of crap. And until, before it gets too expensive, knock on wood here, I will sell that piece of crap. And I realize what I'm saying is the beginning of being a genius is to acknowledge how much of a dumbass you are. And the beginning of being a dumbass is to thinking, to engage in the idea that you're a genius. That's being a dumbass. Just keep this one in mind too, by the way. For folks who actually watch TV programs that are mass marketed, okay? There's a show called The Big Bang Theory. And that is a show about smart people that's marketed to stupid people. There's a show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and that's a show about stupid people marketed to smart people. I know a Mensa guy. That means like measured, very high IQ. A good friend. Living in Texas. That's a smart place to live, by the way. Nice to be in a red state. Living in a blue state, I can tell you, it's good to be in a red state. I live in the reddest part of this blue state as best I can, but smart people know, and he enjoys Always Sunny, and those people like Sheldon Cooper featured in The Big Bang Theory. The thing about it is that supposed to be smart, but reality is they're very stupid in a lot of ways because they think they're smart. So don't do that. This next one is about the markets. This is about economics. Okay, there's actually colors to the markets. And you might know some of the colors, okay? And this meme shows the colors. It shows, of course, the white market. That means it's got laws all over it. It has it covers basically legal employment, things that are regulated goods and services, taxed goods and services, legal businesses, legal employment. That's the white market. And next to that is the gray market. So software is a gray market. You can make software, any kind you want, and sell it. Art is basically artwork is the gray market, as is consulting, as is life coaching. This is the gray market. This is basically employment is off the books. It does not necessarily have to be taxed goods and services, unregulated goods and services. So this is where basically I know that, of course, the IRS and other the other tax agencies across the world would like to have everything regulated. They want to squeeze everything between white and black. But the reality is there's too many goods and services. So thankfully, there are no regulations covering a vast number of things. And then, of course, we go to the black market. That is things that are designated as illegal for anyone to engage in, with the exception of large governments, which have basically they allow themselves in certain areas to do certain things, such as selling various powerful drugs, such as selling sex, and selling certain kinds of weaponry. That is the black market, basically. So either you're part of the big gang called government, and the banks that own them, and the corporations that are under those banks that basically are part of them, or you're actually in a criminal cabal of one size or another that's been essentially that moves with them, that is maybe a hidden arm or tentacle of the government, basically. So there you have state approval, banned unless done in state-defined manner, which is the gray market, and state ban, that's the black market. And now, so that's all, of course, the moral ones. We're talking about moral ones, white, gray, and black. That's moral. Now let's touch on the immoral. Giving you a little economic lesson. Ooh. Immoral markets, the pink market. This is war and taxation and state torture, imprisonment, compulsory education. Whenever you force people into these things. Interesting, that's called pink, right? I would put war over there in red because it actually causes murder, but there you go. The red market technically is straight up murder, straight up theft, and of course, rape and slavery. And it's good to understand, by the way, that I believe in this modern day, this is August 1st, 2025. As far as I know, there's more slaves now across the world, more people who are in compulsory forms of complete domination than any other time in history. And that's something people could choose to be aware of or not. Now, I say it's good to be aware of good things and manifest good things and not paying attention to nasty stuff. I just was watching something very briefly that got gross and nasty, which often happens with many shows and many different movies nowadays, and I just turned it off. What you put your attention to, that's what potentially you're engaging in. It shows up in your dreams later, as I get to experience. I do not recommend it. So moving on. So Gen X still prints boarding passes because we survived. Microsoft Word has encountered an error and needs to close, as we watched our term papers vanish into thin air at 1 a.m. We know the technology will betray you at the worst possible moment. And this is important to know. This is one reason why you have redundancy. I think that there's many members of the Gen X, though there's certainly awesome, powerful, and utility-focused millennials who know that there are ways to have duplicated experience, duplicated redundancies to prevent big problems. It's what makes life awesome, basically. So yeah, that's why I always print a boarding pass. I could have it on my phone in a moment's notice, but I'm going to have the piece of paper in the appropriate pocket in my travel clothes, Got one pocket for the boarding pass that I'm going to use at the gate. And I got another pocket for the other boarding passes for all the other gates, for all the other airports that I'm getting to. Because, by the way, yeah, traveling from this big island of Hawaii to where you guys are on the mainland or further, there's got to be a lot of airports. That's the way it goes. A whole bunch of airports. And yeah, this is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay, this is mission critical to understand. The up, down the x-axis, we got from low to high as far as your, I would say what confidence level. That's on the side. The confidence level is on the x-axis, from low confidence to high confidence. You start off at stupid, and it's low confidence, but then unfortunately, you watch something or you read something and you think you know something. And this is the common thing. Like, now you think you know something. Now you think you know all about virology, or that viruses have been isolated and actually, proven to cause disease. You think you know something. You are at the peak of Mount Stupid because you think you know something with very minimal information. I was like that too when I started being an acupuncturist. When I started my medical journey, I was shown the book that could have opened my mind to it. It was called Pasteur or Bechamp. And that was the beginning of understanding terrain model. I could have looked into seeing, hey, what's the fundamental support for virology, but I didn't. I assumed because my medical teacher was showing me how to treat viruses that it was true. But it's not. It doesn't work that way. So you end up at the peak of Mount Stupid. But then when you're actually like me, I'm 27 years into my paid career as an acupuncturist, to my getting paid money by real people to solve their health problems. And that means that they stop paying me if I stop solving things. They move on, So take your, sitting on insurance thing and you could shove that where the sun doesn't shine. No, that's for catastrophic things. That's what insurance is for. Real professionals get paid real money to solve real problems. That's what we really do. And when you go through 27 plus years of a thing, you come to a valley of despair very quickly, which means that, I think I know something. And then in my first year, I was unable to solve all kinds of problems for various people. I had to change how I was doing things. I needed to understand what I was doing wrong in my medical practice, what I was missing. And that's where I started to learn. That's where I started to gain competence. See, the bottom axis of knowing nothing and gaining competence. Practicality.
All right, Darrell, from the future for a moment, just wanted to add the Breakfast Club meme and describe it all. So it starts off with Bender. He's the guy who's all tough and has a lot of things going on in this Breakfast Club movie. He's labeled libertarian, and it says, we need to cut spending. And then we got, the jock, that guy, Emilio Estevez. He's labeled Republican, and it says, just not Israel. And then we got the weirdo girl, the one who decorates her drawing with her dandruff. And yeah, she's basically labeled as green and just not renewable energy. Then we got Claire, played by Molly Ringwald, and she's labeled Democrat. Why do you hate minorities? And then finally we got Anthony Michael Hall, labeled anarchist, and he says, I shouldn't have eaten that gummy. So that's just the gist of this meme, so you could just see it in your mind, And that's kind of what it's like to be an anarchist.
Yeah. I'll just go here to what's important. Yeah, this is the learning curve. So a lot of people love to think you know something. This is similar to Dunning-Kruger. You like to be certain. If you love to be certain of your conclusions, if you hate having me take your certainty and your beliefs and basically grind it up, like take your sacred cow and basically put it through a meat grinder and turn it into my hamburger, well, you're not going to love my channel because I want to do that for everything. Sacred is a moment of experience. There's nothing I can grind up about that. There's none of my words affect the sacredness of your beautiful experience. But your idea that you cherish as a belief that you've held onto for a long time, that's not sacred. That is something that I think you should consider is what's on the toilet paper that you used to wipe yourself with this morning. That's where that belongs. That is not, your beliefs are not sacred. Your beliefs are an idea. And if you can't wipe them away and change them and realize that they are as useful as what you just flushed down the toilet, you're going to have a bad time one way or another down the line. So here's the learning curve. Someone who I know would say, I had COVID, and they are just misinformed. And then someone else said, well, I don't believe in COVID. I think it's just the flu. They're better informed. And then finally, I had a detox. That's the best informed. I now understand basically that what people call the disease, the symptoms of what people would either call the flu, as they did before 2020, or they would call COVID, as they did after 2020. It doesn't matter if the symptoms were losing your sense of smell, losing your sense of taste. That's been going on for hundreds of years. Long time. It's not a new thing. Look it up. If you certainly had a fever, if you had a lot of phlegm, if you certainly just had cough, if you just were sick in bed, not able to get up, low energy, all those things, that's called detoxing. That's what those body symptoms just try to heal you. So these are all important concepts. It's important to be open-minded.
Cognitive dissonance, the inner tension that arises when someone holds two or more contradictory beliefs, values, or behaviors. To ease the discomfort, people often rationalize, dismiss evidence, or double down on one side. An example in internet banter, a self-proclaimed anti-corporate progressive rails against Big Pharma's greed, and yet in the same thread angrily insists everyone must trust and comply with government pharma partnerships for mandatory vaccination. When called out, instead of reconciling the contradiction, they deflect. You're just a conspiracy theorist. Rationalize. Yes, corporations are greedy, but only this time they're saving lives. And attack. People like you are the problem. The cognitive dissonance is between distrust of corporations versus defense of corporate state mandates. The banter spirals into memes, insults, and mockery, all coping mechanisms to reduce the psychological discomfort. Just wanted to add that to the show.
And now one of my favorite topics, Bitcoin. Why do I like Bitcoin? And, why do I think Bitcoin and potentially the whole entire crypto market is there to save your ass financially? Because it saved my ass financially. But besides that, I've looked into it. So before understanding Bitcoin, you got the guys holding out his hand, looking at the Bitcoin, saying, is this a scam? And then after understanding Bitcoin, it's instead in his hand is almost everything else. Is this a scam? And that's because you understand that this is about really powerful, tangible technology. Something that's decentralized. That's what Bitcoin is. It's distributed across the world to way too many nodes at this point to lock down. There's more nodes opening up all the time. Nodes are places where the actual ledger of all the blockchain, the entire history of every transaction from this last second to the first one in 2009 is all right there. They're all linking up and agreeing and linking up and agreeing. That's one component of it. And the next component, being decentralized, it's also peer-to-peer. So when I send it to someone or someone sends it to me as a payment for my services, well, there you go. Then what happens is you have this, basically, it just happens, And, when I buy something with a credit card, I could cancel that transaction. And the vendor can be left holding the bag. They lost their thing, or it's where they're waiting in transit for it to come back into everything. They lost their money, and they're having to pay for the experience. Or, for example, when, if I have a transaction through a credit card canceled, then now I'm chasing down. I've got accounts receivable going on with someone. Now, like I'm not getting the money. Well, that's the cool thing about this. It's peer to peer. So if I spent the Bitcoin to someone else, I have to ask them to give it back. It's gone to them once I send it. Just like in the same way physical gold, silver, or other tangibles passing hands, a dozen eggs that our hens grow. When things pass hands, now it's in their hands. And the same thing, but the difference is there's no distance problem. There's a huge distance problem for moving gold or silver or the eggs that our hens lay. It's really, really hard to move those things. Like it's expensive to move them. And it's very not expensive. It's very inexpensive to move the Bitcoin. So those are some components of it. But yes, encrypted, of course, is another thing that you can make happen with the Bitcoin. And that's nice. And open source. And that means that all the geeks in the world since 2009 have been at it, looking at the open source code for the Bitcoin, trying to hack and create a counterfeit Bitcoin transaction. And that's a long time since 2009 where they've failed to make a counterfeit transaction. And they keep trying and they keep failing. So it's just become what's called anti-fragile. They keep trying to hack it and it just gets stronger and it gets stronger and it gets stronger. So you can be what's that called? Stuck in the mud technologically. Oh God, the word is escaping me. It's gonna bubble up here. The person who's stuck in the old ways, they just think like an old person, like a boomer, or like the silent generation, like my dad. Yeah, it's Luddite is the word. It finally, the bubble popped here. See, slow. Luddite. You can think like that. A new thing is bad. Anything that happened after you were 40 years old is too new, and it's like anything like that happened before you were 40 is like between age 30 and 40. Well, that's innovative, and of course things that you grew up with, well, that's obvious, so think like a youngin. That helps. Hang out with youngins. That helps. So yeah, well played, horse. Well played. So then we got the then and now. Back then the horses were pulling the wagons, and now we got horses in these lovely, horse carrier devices to drive the horse around from one place to another. Back then the poor people would have a horse and the wealthy person would have a car. And now the wealthy people have horses and the poor person has a poor person's car. But of course, the wealthy person has amazing cars too. So yeah, that's the end of the show. I just wanted to thank everyone for watching and listening. I think it's kind of important to understand. We share the memes. If you like the memes, go to madeyouthink.com. Obviously, made ya think. MADEYATHING. Made you think. And yeah, you can see that what I've done is I've taken the memes and I had them turned into these mosaics, a mosaic of memes. And that way, if you would like, you can get that mosaic and check out the mosaic, right? If you just like see this thing. And by the way, since I want to credit all of the other artists who made all these memes, there will be files. Basically, you'll get zip folders with all the memes, and that way you get the high quality memes too. And, for the artists who say, hey, you're distributing my memes and getting money for it. No, I'm getting money for the mosaic. And I'm distributing the memes because I want you to get some attribution. If you want to, you can reach out admin@madeyouthink.com and let me know. And if you don't want me to share your memes, let me know and I'll stop sharing that specific meme. Just help try to prove that that's your meme. That's all. Good luck, by the way. But, maybe you can. Maybe you got obviously a good case that you made that meme. And for sure, I know people, like that I'm going to get permission from that I for sure can distribute the memes out there. I'm getting the money is for the mosaic. I'm distributing the memes. You get it stuck in all these different categories. I got the regular red-pilled fire memes that are just opening minds, like the red pill and the Matrix. I got the medical memes where you go into all the rabbit holes of real effective medicine, not the standard industrial medicine, and open up your mind that way. Yeah, so please open up your mind, and please check out the memes, madeyouthink.com, and wishing you a sweet day.
Made you think.